Hello and welcome to Minus the Hangover, the no and low alcohol drinks podcast that reaches the parts other podcasts can't reach, with me, Christoph Phillips.
And with me, Pete Mason.
We're back for another exciting instalment. Just you try and stop us. And actually, Pete, I say this with today's theme in mind because we're looking at barriers to entry. All those reasons that you, me, average Joe public might face in getting into no and low alcohol drinks.
Yeah, no, it's something which I've kind of been thinking about for a while, and it's something I have opinions on. And what better medium?
Brace yourself. There's opinions incoming.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's a reason, you know, we're doing a podcast, so that's because my opinions must be known. So here we are.
Soapbox time. Okay.
Indeed.
Well, look, before we get into the ins and outs of all of that, we also have two full tastings this week. We've got M&S Divin or Divine or Divan, dunno. It's the Pinot Noir, the red wine, and Gordon's enigmatically named 0% spirit drink. It's a gin, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, obviously.
Plus 3 of our brand new top pick mini reviews. Lidl brand Perlenbacher Pils Alcohol-Free, M&S low alcohol Czech lager, and Infinite Session IPA. But first, how about we go straight into our first tasting of the episode, and it's Pete with Marks & Spencer's Divine Pinot Noir red wine.
Yes, so this is the Grand Reserve, a Pinot Noir from the producer that's spelt Divin.
I know it's tricky.
I think, right, these are French, so I think it's something like Divin. Anyway, it is a wine. It is a low alcohol one. It says it's less than 0.5% ABV. It's in a 750ml standard wine bottle, and I paid £12 for this bottle from M&S. Yeah, let's get it open. Give it a taste.
Why not?
So in the glass is a deep ruby red. It is quite dark, and you can't really see through it. On the nose... I'm getting a bit of cherry. It kind of smells a little bit kind of earthy to me as well.
It does. That brambly smell to it's nice.
It actually smells like wine, which is not always the case.
You know what it does? There's a bit of pepperiness there as well, so there's depth that I'm getting coming through. Great.
It is missing a slight smell of alcohol, but other than that, I think that's pretty close to a standard alcoholic wine. On the taste, initially, that is quite rich. That's quite intense. And I think, to my mind, immediately, it's much better than other NoLo reds that I've tried. It doesn't taste like grape juice, which is damning with faint praise, but it's kind of true.
No, it's got that wine feel to it. It's got a bit of depth going on. It's quite drying on the mouth. And it feels quite full-bodied, actually, even though the alcohol's missing. Very good job, I think. Nice.
For me, it's kind of a medium body compared to other wine. It's not thick and sweet like some others that I've had. I tell you what I am getting with it, and that's complexity. It's not kind of overly sweet, and it's not kind of one note like other NoLo reds that we've tried, where they've been quite sweet and quite kind of grapey and not a lot else.
Yeah, it's not just grape with a tang. There's more going on here.
100%, absolutely. And to my mind, that's quite balanced as well. As I say, there's complexity there. It feels grown up to me.
I like the drying quality. It's got those tannins that are there.
There's no kind of lingering sweetness to me in the aftertaste. Like you say, there's some tannins. It's a little bit astringent, but it's not overpowering. And to me, that aftertaste, after a few seconds, tastes like I've just had a standard wine. This is a really well executed NoLo red wine. Certainly, I think this is the best one that I've had.
I would second that. I think it's the best I've had. I think it's very convincing. Not only as a NoLo wine, but actually, if you serve this up to someone, you might even get away with them not realising it had no alcohol in it. I think it's very convincing.
I think that's true, actually. If they, not in the context of a tasting, but certainly, yes, if they, you know, as part of a meal or just a conversation, they weren't paying that much attention to it, I can totally see that.
And I think that's the context where this would work best. It feels to me like it doesn't have quite enough to go just on its own to sit and enjoy. in a tasting context, but you could, with a meal, really wash down your food and enjoy that, because you're getting basically everything you get from a glass of red wine. Complexity, the drying quality, those tannins coming through, and a nice full-bodied feel. Very balanced, very nice.
So, in terms of the wine itself, assuming it's 175ml serving size, so kind of a medium glass of wine, there are 30 calories in that 175ml. There are 4.7 grams of carbs. All of those are sugars, so it's just over a teaspoon of sugar in a kind of a medium-sized glass. It is vegan and labelled as such. It is gluten-free, but it's not labelled, but there's nothing in there that's going to contain gluten at all.
Sure, yeah.
In terms of the ingredients, de-alcoholized Pinot Noir wine is 97.5%. So it is basically pretty much all just Pinot Noir wine that's had the alcohol removed. 2.4% is concentrated grape must. So that's essentially sugar from grapes. So that doesn't add anything to flavour. That's to add body and a bit of sweetness. Right. Then we've got some kind of E-numbers, preservatives and so on. Stabiliser, E414, so it's gum arabic. There's a preservative in there as well, E242. And then there's sulfur dioxide as well, which is very commonly used in winemaking. So you'd kind of expect that to be in there. And that's why you see sulfites on the label of pretty much all wine. In terms of availability, you can only really get this at M&S and Ocado as well, but those are the only places you can get it, and it is £12 for this bottle. It's not cheap. I think it's reasonable value, but it's not cheap compared to other wines that we've tried already, which are nearer kind of the £4 and £5 mark for the NoLo ones.
Yeah, that's right.
So in terms of the producer itself, it is spelled Divin. It's probably Divin because it is French. Their website doesn't actually say how to pronounce it. So they've got FAQs on their website, but surely the most frequently asked question is, how do I pronounce your name?
I mean, it is for us, but maybe everyone else this just passes them by. Who knows?
Well, absolutely. Maybe it's kind of natural to the continental types. Who knows? They are based in the Loire Valley in central France. And as a company, they first produced their commercial wines in about 2020. And it looks to me like they're a completely NoLo company. Certainly on their website, they only list NoLo wines. And I can't find any evidence that they're owned by a larger company as well.
Okay.
So I think they're an independent company, and I think, they're not just a brand of some massive multinational.
Well, I always like to raise the flag for the independents.
Absolutely, 100%. So they claim to have 100 hectares of vineyards in the Loire Valley, and that's Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc, although they also do wines with Chenin Blanc as well, so I don't know if those are their grapes or not. It's not clear. So on top of their wines as well, they do 2 beers which are flavoured with grapes. There's a Sauvignon Blanc sour, and there's a golden ale with Chenin Blanc as well. Now, I've had, let's say, mixed experiences with mixing grape and grain, and I'm not just talking about the following morning. Having said that, a Sauvignon Blanc sour beer, I think, could work very well. I think there's a lot of overlap between kind of white wines and sour beers in terms of flavours. I think that could work. So let's come to some sort of conclusion about what we think about this. Clearly, we both like it.
So I think you have to look at this in the context of other red wines, even against other standard alcoholic red wines. I like this. I would drink it quite happily. Against other NoLo red wines, I think it's head and shoulders above the rest. I think it's well balanced. There's complexity there. It makes me want to drink more. I've been sipping it all the time that you were talking there, quite happily. Would I sit and drink it, in a tasting kind of context? Not sure. But certainly with a meal, it's excellent. It's a resounding thumbs up from me.
Agreed, pretty much on all counts. It's pretty complex, certainly for a NoLo red wine, and it definitely feels to me like a grown-up drink. It's not cheap at £12 a bottle, but it is the closest I've tasted to a standard red wine, and it's really enjoyable. So for me, a thumbs up.
So there we have it. 2 thumbs up for M&S's Divine Pinot Noir Grand Reserve. Now it's time for the big chat, our spot each week where we take a deep dive on a particular topic or angle on the NoLo drinks industry. And this week we're looking at barriers to entry. Which I'm guessing, Pete, means anything and everything that tends to get in the way of people getting into NoLo drinks.
So yes, barriers to buying NoLo drinks. First off, what is a barrier? And in this case, I mean, what is stopping people from buying NoLo drinks or buying more NoLo drinks or buying new NoLo drinks? Yeah. So that might be someone who is new to NoLo and is kind of eyeing up the drink selection at the local Tesco. You know, what's stopping them or what's making their decision harder? Or maybe it's someone who has the occasional NoLo beer or Prosecco and is looking at other alternatives, so different beer or wine brands, or maybe looking at a zero spirit. So what's their thought process and what kind of barriers are they facing? So you can basically, in essence, take it down to kind of three scenarios. One is, why are more people not interested in NoLo alcohol drinks?
Okay. Yeah.
Two, for people who are interested but haven't really tried it before, what's stopping them taking the plunge? And then thirdly, for people who already drink NoLos, why don't they drink more of them, or different brands or different drinks?
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
So normally I prefer to do more kind of like factual features for our big chat. So I've covered things like, you know, what is wine and what is lager, and explaining what ABV is and all that kind of thing. And this one is kind of lower on statistics and hard facts and higher on kind of opinions and vibes, I suppose.
Okay. But I think that's fair. You know, there's a place for that. That's okay.
Indeed. So this is my opinion of the current state of play in 2026, and I don't pretend to be an expert. So if any of our listeners think that I'm wrong or I missed anything, please absolutely write in, give us some feedback. We genuinely want to know what you think.
Yeah, definitely.
So when I set out to write this, I had two main issues in mind, because they were the two main barriers that I faced, and those are basically how much the drinks cost and how good they were. But through kind of like, you know, thinking about this feature, I realised there were loads of other barriers for people. So I've made a big list, and here they are. So firstly, price. And particularly compared to standard versions of the same drink. Second is image. So essentially the expectations people have before trying a NoLo beer or wine or whatever. Thirdly, inertia. So overcoming reluctance towards NoLos or modifying existing kind of drinking and purchasing habits and behaviours.
Yeah. Yep.
Navigation. So how do people find NoLo brands or drinks? You know, where do they stumble across them? Taste. Is it a nice drink? Does it do the job? Terminology. Do people understand what low alcohol or alcohol-free actually means? And then supply. So what is the availability of NoLos in different places that you might come across them? So to recap, price, image, inertia, navigation, taste, terminology, and supply, or as I like to call it, pints.
That is tortured. How many I's in that pie?
Pints. So 2 I's and 2 T's.
Brilliant, Pete. Might be your best moment yet.
That took me so long you don't even know. So for each one of these aspects, I want to give the NoLo industry a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Ah, interesting. Okay, yeah.
So a thumbs up if they're doing a good job to tackle this barrier, or at least kind of moving in the right direction, or a thumbs down if I don't think they're doing a good job. The first element of our pints system is price. Going all the way back to episode 2 with this one. So NoLo drinks have tended to be priced similarly to standard alcohol drinks.
Yeah.
Now, there's a sign this is actually changing now. So things like Prosecco, for example, have always been cheap. But I had a quick look at the Tesco website earlier on, and you've got some big brands which are actually, their NoLo versions are significantly cheaper than their standard versions.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So Adnam's Ghost Ship, for example, £1.60 NoLo, £2 alcoholic. So it's 40p difference there, which is pretty much the difference in price in terms of alcohol duty.
Right, so we're seeing that reflected finally.
Heineken, so 330ml cans, 6 of them, is £5 for the zero version and £6.50 for the standard. And you see that reflected similarly with Peroni, with Kopparberg cider as well. That's £4 zero or £5.75 standard. In M&S as well, you've got the light and fresh wine, which is £4, and their equivalent standard one is £5.50. Now, there are always exceptions to this, and Guinness absolutely deserves a black mark here, because the Guinness Zero is only 5p per can cheaper.
Naughty, naughty.
Indeed, it should be more like 40p. And then you've got the alcoholic versions of spirits, like, say, Gordon's, and, spoiler alert, it's only a couple of quid cheaper. And it should be more like a tenner based on alcohol duty. Broadly, though, this is a positive trend. Giving this particular aspect a rating, I'm going to give it a cautious thumbs up. Things might change in the future.
Well, I think that's a very positive start, actually, because that is a surprise to me that we're starting to see that difference in price points. So, yeah, I can see where your thumbs up's coming from. Nice.
Element 2 is image. So, do NoLos meet expectations? And essentially, does this drink taste similar to the equivalent standard drink? It's variable. Lagers and Guinness, in fact, yes, they taste very similar to the standard versions. Things like IPAs or British ales mostly do a good job. Yeah, you can see where they're coming from. Wine is a mixed bag, as we've found out.
As we've seen, yeah.
Absolutely. So, we've got some red wines, well, a red wine, which does a great job. Other red wines really don't. So, do they taste the same? It's a mixed bag. But do people expect the drink to taste the same? If you've had that kind of NoLo drink before, then you'll know what to expect. You'll know that lagers do and wines don't really. But someone who hasn't had any experience of, let's say, NoLo red wine, they're going to pick a bottle up in the supermarket expecting something kind of cheap but drinkable and crucially tasting of wine, and they're going to be very disappointed in the main.
Yes, I can completely see that if you were to go in thinking it's the standard version, you're going to drink it and you're going to know that something's missing, the body and the overall feel of the drink. So yes, I can see where you're coming from.
I think it's fair to say that most NoLo drinks don't taste exactly like their standard versions, and possibly they never will in some cases, not least because alcohol plays a massive part in the flavour of certain drinks like wines and certainly kind of spirits. So in terms of image, the rating I'm going to give is a cautious thumbs down, and the reason for that is that beers do a reasonably good job, other drinks less so. It's very hard, or maybe close to impossible, to make a NoLo red wine that tastes like a standard one. But if that's the case, then communicate that to the consumer. And the industry is not doing a good job of communicating this difference. And so for that reason, I'm giving it a cautious thumbs down.
I completely see your logic there.
Thirdly is inertia. And by that, I mean, many people just don't see the point in low and low alcohol drinks, and that's fine, kind of each to their own. You're never going to have massive growth in the sector in terms of selling to everybody who would otherwise drink alcohol drinks, because some people just don't see the point. Other people will drink NoLo drinks, but only really situationally. So things like, they're driving that evening, or it's midweek, or, for kind of shorter term medical issues or health reasons. Other people will try to switch most or all of their alcohol consumption to NoLos. But overall, there's definitely a limit to the market for NoLos. I don't think we're anywhere near that limit yet. So in terms of inertia, from an industry perspective, I'm going to give it a cautious thumbs up, because habits and tastes are changing, definitely. But it's kind of hard to know how much of that is shaped by the industry and how much is kind of consumer-led.
The word on the street is that people are kind of more open to it. They're at least willing to try in lots of ways, but you are going to have those barriers. And how much is this really supported by the industry? I'm with you. So I think that's the right call.
Next, we have navigation in our pint system. So how do people find NoLo drinks, and where do they discover new brands? Primarily probably word of mouth. Yeah. Go to the supermarket. You'll take a look at the no and low section, and you've got plenty of time to kind of browse and investigate and read labels and all that kind of stuff. Media, so by which I mean online, social media and adverts and Facebook groups and stuff, but also things like newspapers. You'll often see a feature about, the best NoLo wines for the summer, that kind of thing. What you don't really find is that people discover new brands at pubs or bars. And the reason for that is that most pubs don't have a drinks list. I mean, so Wetherspoons is an honourable exception here because they absolutely do have a massive list, and they list all the NoLo drinks on there as well as their standard ones, but most don't. And in fact, most bars or pubs don't really have a choice of NoLo drinks. They'll have a NoLo lager, they might have 1 or 2 NoLo wines, depending on how generous they're feeling. And generally speaking as well, they don't have NoLo beers on tap, kind of visible front and centre when you get to the bar.
That's true, yeah.
I was trying to find out how many pubs there are in the UK, and it's really hard to find that out.
I bet, yeah.
I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to say there's around 40,000. Now, Heineken are the leading NoLo draft beer supplier. And at the moment, or as of November, they had 1,700 draft taps. Okay. So 1,700 as compared to 40,000. So even when you add in all the other beers, the NoLo beers that are on tap, what percentage of pubs have draft NoLo beer? And it must be under 10%. So in terms of discovering new NoLo drinks, this is absolutely a barrier. It's a mixed bag. I'm going to give it a cautious thumbs up. It's great in supermarkets. It's pretty good online and in the media, but it's really poor in hospitality venues. It's hard to discover new stuff in the pub.
There's plenty that are cutting corners like that and just not giving it the credence it deserves, and not respecting consumers in that way, because we do want to see choice and we might act on that choice if we see it. So it's a missed opportunity, really.
It is. So then we've got taste. Essentially, how good is the drink? What's the level of quality? And there's 3 main parts to this. Firstly, does it taste nice? Just does it taste nice?
Yeah.
And most of the ones we've tried do taste nice. So I had a look at the drinks that we've looked at on this podcast. So prior to this episode, we have either tasted or reviewed 32 different drinks. Of those, bearing in mind that most of those have got 2 thumbs up or thumbs down, so we've got an opportunity for almost 64 thumbs, as it were. 48 thumbs have been thumbs up, 13 have been thumbs down. So 79% of our ratings have been thumbs up for the drinks that we've done.
Wow.
So mostly the drinks that we have tried have tasted nice.
That's surprising, actually, because I'm asked this all the time. What do you think of the drinks that you're doing? Well, some are really good and it's worth saying, but there are some that are, well, just not good enough. It
is fair to say that there aren't many objectively bad drinks in terms of does this not taste nice? And I think there's a pretty obvious reason for that in the objectively bad drinks, which don't really exist, but they don't really sell.
Well, yes, yeah.
So that's the first main part, is does it taste nice? Secondly, it's kind of the ingredients as well. Are the ingredients familiar if we care about that kind of thing? And mostly, yes. Most NoLo drinks contain the kind of ingredients you'd expect. So beer, for example, is made using the same ingredients as standard beer.
Yeah.
They just remove the alcohol from it. Same with wine. It's essentially the same ingredients. Spirits less so. The ingredients list is a bit odd, but then it kind of has to be because there's no alcohol in there, and that's normally 40% of it.
It has to do more heavy lifting to get round that.
Absolutely. And it's hard to imagine how you could have a familiar ingredients list there. Third element is, does it do the job? Which is a very different question, because what is the job? For example, I like Ribena. But if I want a drink to wind down at the end of the day, I want it to taste like beer or wine, not Ribena.
Fair enough.
Even though Ribena tastes nice, and I do enjoy it. This podcast has been sponsored by Ribena.
No, it hasn't.
No, it hasn't. It really, really hasn't. So does it do the job? Often the answer is yes, although it's always going to be subjective. It goes back to what we're expecting out of a drink. So taste. Overall, those 3 parts. What's my rating? My rating is a cautious thumbs up. NoLo drinks generally taste good. They don't always do the job, but I think generally speaking, the quality is going in the right direction compared to previous years.
Great, agreed.
Next element, terminology. So what does alcohol-free actually mean? And do people understand the various terms used on labels?
Yeah, we've touched on this a few times, haven't we?
We have indeed. So there's this organisation called Drink Aware, which is a charity here in the UK, and what they do is they aim to reduce the harms caused by alcohol. So to people, to society, they work with industry, the government and the public in general. Now, they were actually originally set up by an industry body, an alcohol industry body called the Portman Group, but they're now independent. So they're actually set up by literally a group of the big alcohol manufacturers. Anyway, DrinkAware, they commissioned research in 2024, and part of that was to determine people's understanding of NoLo labelling in the UK, because we've said before, like you say, how confusing it is. So what percentage of people do you think, Chris, can correctly define the term alcohol-free?
I think about 20% of people get it right.
So that's pretty close. 26% of drinkers can correctly define alcohol-free, and that means less than 0.05% ABV.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So there's a very standard legal definition for this. So what percentage of people do you think know what low alcohol means?
I'm going to say 20% again.
16%. And to be fair to Joe Public, it's a bit of a counterintuitive amount. It's actually less than 1.2% ABV is low alcohol. But does this matter in terms of whether people understand these terms? I think it kind of does. I've seen comments online, certainly, expressing confusion.
Yeah.
It says alcohol-free, but it has alcohol in it, for example. And also there's a push from some small producers to allow drinks at 0.5% alcohol to be labelled as alcohol-free, which actually I don't really think is going to help. So overall, my rating for terminology is thumbs down. It's confusing, and I think the push to broaden the term alcohol-free is probably counterproductive as well in terms of public understanding.
Yeah, I think the dividing lines feel fairly arbitrary, and there's zero education about this, zero awareness about where that dividing line is. So, yeah, completely agree.
And then finally, the S of pints is supply. So availability, how easy is it to get hold of? So supermarkets, generally great. Nowadays, even smaller ones have a range of NoLos. You can't always be picky sort of by brand, as it were, but there's always going to be a NoLo lager. There'll always be some NoLo wine and probably at least a couple of spirits. Pubs, not all pubs have got NoLo wines and beers and ciders, although it is definitely more common than it used to be, massively so. Although often there won't be a choice, so it'll be like, it's Peroni or nothing. So it's kind of similar to being vegan back in the day, going into a pub, well, you can have a jacket potato. Fine, I didn't want the choice anyway.
But isn't it nice when choice comes along?
It is quite nice. So supply, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. And it's not bad at the moment in terms of the choice available. There's room for improvement in pubs. Supermarkets are very good, but generally speaking, it's definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah, that feels like a thumbs up that will only get more up as the years go on.
Absolutely. So, in summary, rating the NoLo barriers using my proprietary pint system. Price, cautious thumbs up. Image, cautious thumbs down. Inertia, cautious thumbs up. Navigation, cautious thumbs up. Taste, cautious thumbs up. Terminology, definite thumbs down. And supply, definite thumbs up. Of course, not all of these elements are equal. I still think that price and taste are the most important for kind of long-term prospects.
Yeah.
But things like terminology are fairly important as well, to my mind at least. And that's something that obviously needs to be tackled properly and honestly. But overall, I think it's a cautious thumbs up.
I completely agree. I'd also say I do think availability is a massive part of it.
Yes.
If it's just not available, you can't experiment anyway, but the fact that it's there at least opens the door to that, and then there are those other barriers that people either overcome or they don't. I love that breakdown. What a lovely way to kind of put it. Pints is an interesting proprietary system. But yeah, there's quite a lot to it actually, isn't there?
More than I thought. Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to our second tasting. We've got Gordon's 0% Spirit Drink, which is a gin, isn't it? It's a gin. That's what we're going for.
Indeed.
Now, this is produced by Diageo under the banner Alexander Gordon & Co. It's a spirit drink in the gin style. It's a zero product, so no alcohol at all. 70 centilitre bottle. And I was given this by my good friend Bethan Lane, so thank you very much, Bethan. Should we go straight in and open it up and have a drink?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to try this neat. Now, I've got it with ice cubes because I just want to be able to capture it in isolation. I'm fully aware that this is probably not a drink that's designed really to be drunk neat in that way. But we're going to come on to trying it with a tonic. But just first of all, going in neat. So the first thing to say is it's completely clear. It pours like a gin does. Going in for the smell, well, you do get a smell of juniper berries. You do get those botanicals coming through. There's definitely something there. It doesn't necessarily lift off in the way that you'd expect from a standard gin to do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with it myself. For me, it kind of smells a little bit sort of lemony or citrusy. I'm struggling to get anything else from it. It smells like it's going to be sweet.
Interesting. Okay, let's go in for a taste. I am getting a little bit of juniper coming through, that kind of ginniness. There are some floral notes as well. I'm definitely getting a little bit of something kind of light lifting off. There is a bit of something going on. I know that's damning with faint praise, but at least on the taste, there is a gin quality to it.
It is gin-esque. It doesn't taste like gin in terms of giving you that experience because it is missing the alcohol, but it is a gin equivalent. Absolutely.
I think it's on the aftertaste. It finishes quite chemically for me. It's not particularly pleasant. It's almost, and I've said this for a few things, it's almost a little bit soapy.
Yes, I see where you're going with that. I was quite ready to not like this at all. Neat. And I do drink the occasional martini. So, it's essentially all gin. You kind of show it a vermouth bottle. And this isn't that bad in terms of my expectations.
I do think it kind of works in its own terms. It's missing that 40% of the alcohol, which does so much heavy lifting on the flavour. So that's it neat, but I think the real acid test is when we mix it with a mixer. So we're going to mix it with tonic water. Today we've got Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic water. Now we actually reviewed the sister brand, the Indian tonic water, way back in episode 3, and we liked it. So the Mediterranean, I'm expecting some differences here a little bit, but it's a tonic water, and we're going to see how that balances out. So let's give that an open as well. Now, the serving suggestion on the bottle is that we have a 50 mils of the Gordon's 0% and 150 mils of tonic. So we're going 3-to-1 on the mix there. Let's go in. I mean, obviously it mixes like you'd expect. It's still completely clear. The tonic water's clear. That adds the carbonation. On the smell, well, it now is starting to smell like a gin and tonic. It's not just a tonic smell coming through, and I'm getting more, I think, of the juniper notes coming through. Now it's mixed.
Again, I'm just really struggling with it personally.
Really?
Yeah, it kind of smells like tonic to me. I can't really detect a difference between the Gordon's and tonic and just tonic by itself. But it's one of those things, not everyone can taste everything.
Well, that's true. Okay, let's go in on taste. So I think what it's doing most of all is the job that a gin and tonic does of being quite tart, quite acidic, and quite drying on the tongue. Partly that's going to be the tonic, but it's balanced out a little bit by the juniper that comes through. Is it very ginny within that mix? I don't know. And actually, I didn't put that much tonic in either. So it doesn't bully its way through a lot, but it does do something to change the balance of the tonic water.
I don't know what I think about that. It definitely tastes different to just tonic water by itself. It's not unpleasant, but I'm not sure that for me it's adding that much in terms of... It's really hard to describe because part of the problem is that tonic water and gin, and particularly the zero gin, they share a lot of flavour. I'm really scratching my head at it, I have to say.
I think for me it's a question of kind of intensity. I've got just a little bit of tonic in there with quite a lot of the gin. And it feels like it's balanced. If I'd gone the full, 150 mils versus 50 mils of the gin, I think I would be equally as lost picking it out as you are. But for me, it does definitely do something. It feels closer to a gin and tonic than just tonic.
So a big portion of what I'm kind of tasting or experiencing here is kind of the mouthfeel, and it's certainly thicker than tonic alone. So mixing them together, it's definitely, there's some physical body to it.
So an interesting one. I'm not going to come to scores yet. I just want to tell you a little bit about it. So Gordon's gin is this kind of standard bearer, if you like. It was invented by Alexander Gordon in London in 1769. And it became the kind of the giniest of gins, if you like. It became the flavour, the most juniper-forward flavour. He actually made it with a mix of, it's a secret recipe of wild juniper, coriander, angelica, and licorice, and then triple distilled it. But it did become that gin standard. Now, I mention all of that because this is so obviously standing up this version against their standard branding, if you like. You're not going to mistake it for a lemonade or something. They are emulating a gin, even though they call it a spirit drink, and that's the gin they're going for, the standard bearer. This brand is now, Gordon's, is now owned by Diageo, which is one of the big brands for drinks in the world. Actually still a UK company, I discovered, which I didn't realise Diageo still was. Gordon 0.0 was launched in the UK on December 21st, 2020, initially sold through Tesco and Amazon before a wider rollout, get this, on the January the 3rd, 2021. So 2 weeks later, they then rolled it out.
Seems a bit pointless if you ask me. There you go.
It does a bit, doesn't it? It does. How much data they could have collected in that time, I don't know. Was it some kind of deal over Christmas with Tesco and Amazon? I don't know. But it has been pretty widely available ever since. It's about £15 or £15.50 a bottle, and that's for 70 centilitres. So, Pete, I'm going to come to you first.
You know what? I have a problem with this, and part of the problem I think is my lack of experience when it comes to NoLo spirits. I am finding this very confusing in that I just don't know how to react to it. It kind of tastes a little bit different having the gin with the tonic, but comparing to something like the Captain Morgan Zero that we had, where it made no sense by itself, it was not very nice, but as soon as you add it to Coke, it's immediately apparent what it's bringing to the drink. And this isn't doing it for me in the same way. By itself, it's fine, it's not very nice. I certainly wouldn't buy it to put it into martini. As part of a G&T, I'm really struggling. And again, I think that's my issue rather than the drink itself.
Okay, Pete, I'm going to press you on it then. So is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
So a big part of this is going to be, for me, the value in it in terms of what it brings to the drink compared to the cost. It's quite pricey at £15 per bottle. And to be honest, I like tonic just by itself anyway. So for me, it's not really worth it. It's a thumbs down.
Look, I'm going to fall on the other side of that argument. I do think it changes the tonic a bit and enough. It's not resounding. It doesn't lift off. It's not super convincing because, frankly, I think 40% of what the drink flavour that we're used to is just missing, and that's the alcohol, and we just cannot replicate it in that way. But I am going to give it a thumbs up because I do think it changes it, and I am fairly convinced it's a gin and tonic when I drink it.
So that's one thumbs up and one thumbs down for Gordon's Zero Spirit Drink.
Now it's time for our 3 top pick mini reviews. And I've always wanted to say this. Here's one I made earlier.
Very nice.
Perlenbacher is a German-style lager brewed, as the label says, to be completely alcohol-free and is sold exclusively at Lidl. It's vegan and comes in a 6-pack of 330ml bottles for a very reasonable £2.99, around 50p per bottle. And here's my review. It opens with a nice level of fizz and forms a decent head that lasts reasonably well. It's crystal clear with a golden colour darker than many other German-style lagers, but with an inviting, crisp, hoppy and somewhat malty or even grainy aroma that certainly perfectly captures that convincing lager smell. Going in for a taste, it's satisfyingly malty with a degree of hoppiness without being overly hop forward, and carries a sweetness that balances out the bitter notes that follow. Crucially, it has decent body while retaining that essential lager crispness, actually a touch smoother than you might expect. And for what it lacks in complexity, it's very much positioned as a German-style lager. It makes up for in balance and a generally satisfying finish. So, would I buy Perlenbacher 0% lager again? Well, if you're familiar with German-style lagers, you'll know what to expect. An uncomplicated NoLo that works nicely, and considering its low price, very good value. So for that reason, it's a strong thumbs up from me.
So, Chris, from that mini review, I'm getting the impression that you just basically you liked it and you thought it was really good value.
I did, yeah. I think the value is a really important part of why I liked it, because it is pretty cheap. But I thought it worked. I thought it was pretty balanced, a bit smoother than I was expecting it to be. It stood up pretty well. And like I say, because of that value, that's what pushed me into it being a very strong thumbs up. So yeah, give it a try.
Fair enough, will do. And so on to the second mini pick, which was mine, which is M&S Low Alcohol Czech Lager. This is M&S Low Alcohol Czech Lager, and I'm Pete from Minus the Hangover, the No and Low Alcohol podcast. I paid £1.80 for this bottle on my local Marks and Sparks. It clocks in at 0.5% ABV, so it's low alcohol, not alcohol-free, and it's brewed at the Litovol Brewery in Czechia. It's labelled as vegan. There was an earlier version of this lager brewed at Stara Pramen, which didn't get particularly good reception, so will this version fare better? Here's my review. It pours a light caramel colour and it smells fairly sweet and malty as far as lagers go, but what does it taste like? Well, there's quite a lot going on for NoLo beer. There's a good punch of malt and it's very biscuity. I can taste some floral hops too. It's pretty sweet at first, definitely sweeter than standard lager, but the aftertaste is pleasingly bitter and it's a little bit astringent in a good way. I'm a big fan of the standard M&S Czech lager, and this is pretty similar, even though they are brewed at different breweries in Czechia. Both beers have a lot of biscuity flavours, which I personally love in a lager. Overall, this is a full-bodied, malty lager, not a light and crisp one. But would I buy this beer again? Yes, I would definitely. It's a nice low-alcohol lager, although we aren't exactly short of those. £1.80 for 500ml isn't bad value, and you can also get 330ml cans as well. For me, this is an easy thumbs up.
Okay, Pete, so you thought it was malty, full-bodied, very satisfying. An easy thumbs up?
Yeah. The word I would use most to describe it is actually biscuity, though, and I really love biscuity lagers. Like I say, the standard Czech lager from M&S is really biscuity, and I love it. And it's not that common to get NoLo beers that taste like that. So yeah, I really like the beer. I'm definitely buying it again.
One question, that sweetness, do you think that might turn people off?
I think it does disappear quite quickly. It's definitely a big part of the initial taste, but not in terms of the aftertaste. It's quite well balanced once you get past that initial sweetness. So I think, everyone's tastes are different. For me, it's fine. I'm not sure about other people.
Great. Well, that's our second one. Let's move on to Infinite Session IPA.
Nice.
Infinite Session IPA is brewed to be 0.5% ABV or less and just 35 calories a can. It's vegan and comes in a 4-pack of 330ml cans from Sainsbury's for £4.50 or a budget-friendly £3.25 with nectar. This IPA is the only beer from Infinite Session and brewed with Amarillo, Citra and Centennial hops. Opening the can, be sure to have a glass at the ready. It can be lively. That carbonation carries over well into forming a nice head, although it can dissipate quickly depending on how much fizz is lost in those first moments. The smell is welcoming, a good balance of sweetness, malt and hops, and topped by almost honey tones. That honey feel carries over into the taste, which balances its sweet and juicy hoppy character with a nice level of bitterness. The mouthfeel is satisfyingly smooth and velvety, again almost like there's honey or even lactose in there. Those honey notes might prove too sweet for some tastes, but I enjoyed its silky, somewhat sweet hoppiness. So, would I buy Infinite Session IPA again? Well, with its honey notes and sweet, juicy, hoppy taste, it's closer to a honey lager than a true hop-forward IPA. But nonetheless, I found myself wanting more. So for that reason, it's a thumbs up from me.
So, Chris, from that review, I have learnt of a different beer style I wasn't aware of, which is a honey lager. I literally never heard of it.
Oh, really? No. Okay, well, yeah, you can get lagers with honey in, and it carries a kind of caramelly, honey smoothness to it. And this had it in spades. I really liked it for that reason. It just stood out. Whether or not it's the best one I've ever had, the honeyness made it memorable for me, and I've really enjoyed it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll give that a try.
So there we go, another episode of Minus the Hangover, and, you know, a pretty deep dive into barriers to entry, but hopefully very easy for people to get into, at least listening to our podcast on that episode.
Indeed, and I'm off to the trademark office for the Pines system as soon as we finish recording.
I can see T-shirts, I can see, you know, car stickers. It's all happening. So, Pete, thinking of the next episode, what's on the drinks menu?
So, Chris, you'll be regaling us with the story of Caliber, which is one of the earliest low-alcohol lagers available here in the UK. It doesn't have a great reputation, but is that fair?
Well, that's what we're going to be getting into.
On top of that, we'll be tasting Proper Job 0.5% from Cornish brewers St Austell and also Copperberg's Mixed Fruit Tropical alcohol-free cider, plus 3 more top pick mini reviews, all of which will be revealed.
Till then, thank you very much for tuning in to Minus the Hangover with me, Christoph Phillips.
And with me, Pete Mason.
Have a fantastic week and enjoy whatever drinks take your fancy. Minus the hangover.